The wind came low across the Arizona flats that evening, dragging dust and the smell of distant rain as Ethan Cole reined his horse near the broken wagon, its wheel twisted like a wounded limb, the canvas torn and sagging, and beside it stood the Apache woman, alone, defiant, blood-dried dark, along her forearm where wood had bitten skin, her chin lifted not in plea, but in challenge, as if daring the world to finish what it had started. And Ethan, a man who had learned to mind his own business in a land where curiosity got men buried, should have ridden past, yet something in the way she braced herself against the wind, refusing to kneel even when the desert pressed her down, stopped him cold. He dismounted slowly, hands open, voice low, offering help with the wheel, and she watched him with eyes sharp as flint, weighing every breath he took, before finally nodding once, a warrior's consent, and together they worked in silence as the sun bled into the horizon. Ethan lifting, levering, tying, while she steadied the axle and bit back pain, and when the wheel finally held, crooked but rolling, she met his gaze and spoke only one word, "Thanks," and before climbing onto the wagon and driving off toward the red hills without looking back, leaving Ethan standing in the dust with a feeling he couldn't name. And it should have ended there, a moment lost to the desert. But the night had other plans. The storm came hard and fast, forcing Ethan back to his cabin tucked against a line of junipers, rain hammering the roof, thunder cracking like rifle fire, and just before dawn, as the storm eased into a sickening quiet, a sound reached him that froze his blood. The soft thud of hooves, not one or two, but many, circling, measuring, and when he cracked the door and looked through the slit of light, his heart dropped into his boots, for war paint riders ringed the cabin, faces streaked in black and red, eyes burning with purpose, rifles and lances ready, and at their center stood the woman from the wagon, no longer wounded traveler but something far more dangerous, her posture straight, her presence commanding, and Ethan realized then the terrible truth. Helping her had not been kindness. It had been crossing a line drawn long before he ever set foot on that land. Memories flooded him as the riders dismounted, memories of whispers in saloons about Apache blood debts, about honor older than fences. And when she stepped forward and spoke his name somehow already, knowing it, he felt the weight of fate settle on his shoulders. She told him the wagon was a test, a broken thing placed on a lonely road to measure a man's heart, because her people had been hunted, lied to, and slaughtered by men who smiled while offering help, and she had been sent to see if any truth still walked in boots and denim. And now the riders waited for her word, waited to see whether the cowboy, who could have ridden past, would live or die by the choice he made when no one was watching. Ethan didn't reach for his gun, didn't argue, didn't beg. He simply stepped out into the open, rain-soaked earth squelching under his boots, and told her the truth, that he helped because it was right, not because she was Apache, not because she was a woman, but because a human being stood alone in a hard land, and for a long moment the world held its breath, even the riders shifting uneasily. And then she raised her hand and the circle loosened, weapons lowering, because in that dawn light she saw what her people feared was gone, a man who chose decency without reward, and she told him the riders had been sent to burn the cabin if he failed, to erase another lie from the earth. But now they would ride away, leaving him alive, though forever changed, because from this day on the land would remember his name. And as they mounted and vanished into the waking desert, Ethan stood shaking, knowing he had survived something bigger than violence, something heavier than fear. And as the sun rose, painting the world gold, he understood that stories like this were not about guns or wars, but about moments when one choice echoes across generations. And if you're listening to this story right now, if you felt your chest tighten at the sound of hooves or your breath catch at the edge of dawn, then you already understand why these stories matter, why remembering courage without applause keeps something human alive. And that's why I ask you, stay with this channel, subscribe, because as long as these stories are told, the desert doesn't get the last word.